Delighted to continue now. We have a slight change in the programme. So unfortunately, we don't have our young group from the Ballinrobe Community School, but we do have Jacques Laesser from the Swiss Ornithological Institute. And we're delighted for you to join us today. I know you've had a bit of a challenge and a journey, but great that you've made it here. Jacques is a scientific collaborator with the Urban Habitats Unit with the Swiss Ornithological Institute. Since 2018, he's been responsible for the Institute's Swift Conservation Programme, and since 2022 of the Building Nestor Inventory Programme. And he's been an active birdwatcher and ringer for several decades. So you're very welcome, Jacques.
Thank you very much. So do you hear me? Very happy to be finally here. Well, it's really great. I'm very excited to present today for us an important development in swift conservation, which is this booklet. So some of you might know Iris Scholl here. Showing us a breeding site of alpine swift and jackdaws in Großmünster in Zurich. She's a very dedicated swift conservationist, active for decades, mostly in Zurich and nearby. And she's responsible for an earlier version of a booklet. This is a technical booklet for stakeholders like architects, municipalities, or house owner who want to install boxes or nest places in their place. And this booklet has been published in 2016. And for all of us people working for Swifts, it was really an important reference, important conservation companion. But the German edition was out of print, and in the meanwhile there were different developments that made an update meaningful. So Iris came to us, to the Swiss Ornithological Institute, and asked us if we were ready to, interested to take, to contribute or to take the lead in this new version. So we did. And the new version has been launched, released in last summer 2025. And the new thing is not only French and German, but also Italian. And of course, we focus on the context, on the Swiss context, but we're certain that can also be useful abroad. From the beginning, we were looking for a broad partnership. It's not only and not first about money help, of course, but it's mostly first to get the expectation of the stakeholders, of the user of the booklet, also the expertise in some areas, in some topics, and also, of course, so that when launched, the brochure can be used as widely as possible. How we did that? We were 3 authors, and we started with a 2016 version as a base. But there are hardly any sentence left from the earlier version. We worked really through the whole and added some chapters, removed some others. So it's really a new product, I would say. There were also a long discussion about shall we do a print version or not. And now we're very happy that we have this print version, this object that we can give to partners. And it's really broadly appreciated. This booklet is quite with 40 pages. There is some, it's quite substantial, but still there are more information that we couldn't pass in, so there are some supplements online as well. I talk about this later. We wanted this this document to be attractive, so we mandate illustrator who made not only very attractive pictures, but also very precise drawings, sketches for people planning nest boxes. So do you hear me? Yes. In the meanwhile, there were other interesting development in Switzerland about law. No new law, but new interpretation for law in the way that up to recently it was unclear if the Swiss nests were protected over the whole year. And now Confederation confirmed that it's the case. So we were able also to introduce these conditions in the brochure, and somehow it was really an important change in our mission, and also in the way we can introduce to the topic in the brochure. So we worked also closely with municipalities to ask them how this document can be helpful for them. And so we describe really the whole process of, for example, well, mostly the building construction permits where breeding places might be involved and what to do with that. So one of the important part is inventory as reference, as base for those stakeholders. And it's not the main part of the brochure, I would say, but it's mentioned, and there are links. We have lots of documentation on that topic also in the Swiss Ornithological Institute, not only documentation, but a whole environment about how to manage and let the data available. We have this great portal which change the effect of our engagements a lot. I think I present this 2 years ago already, but you've seen that it has been well populated in the meanwhile, which is very good news. The blue points are the common swifts, the red points are the alpine swift. As you see, there's still some gaps. But we see our mission as a whole complex where to support the municipalities and the canton, the communities and the cantons to be able to follow the process so that no breeding place is lost. And this document, this booklet, is thought as help to detect the place, to react correctly when a breeding site is involved, and to suggest, to recommend a solution to make both possible without one suffer too much or at all. And there are indeed most of the time possible solutions. We introduce as well solution for modern buildings, so as new places or as replacement places for breeding sites which would have been lost through demolition of past colonies. So in the previous booklet, there were two sites on Alpine Swift, and in the meanwhile, at least for me, it was I get the awareness that Alpine Swift is not just a big common Swift. The species has its own properties and needs, and in the meanwhile, there are many solutions which were adapted for it. For example, those Flachkästen, like they called in German, like vertical nesting boxes, which are getting more and more popular in Switzerland, and they have advantages in the way that it avoids concurrence with other species like jackdaws. We also mentioning the colonial nesting rooms, so big rooms where several pairs are breeding, which is not the case for common swifts. So we described this more in details. We have also one slide about the pallid swift, which is rather new in Switzerland. There were a colony since decades in Tessin, only one on the church, but in recent years, many new colonies in different cities appeared. So it's still quite unclear how behave and what will happen about the pallid swift in the Swiss context, but at least we recognize this and we mention it. So there are more information in the brochure than, well, there are more information available than just what is written. And everywhere in the document, you see QR codes, and in the digital version, you have also direct links to further materials. Well, sorry, first, oops, doesn't matter. Here you can, on our website, you can download the documents, and there is more material, more documentation online that will be further populated because things change, things evolved. There are acknowledgements of new problems and new solutions. So we want to keep this open for new development to make the brochure more still actual in many years. So this is an important step in the conservation of swifts building nesters in Switzerland, in the way that we try to introduce or to support, to help the stakeholders or all actors in building nester conservation to manage a whole chain of duties to be able to support building nester conservation as a whole, from census to data collection, data management, access to other data, prioritization, and this last document, latest document, is an important support for conservation to bring solution when the site are identified. So the document is available in French, German, and Italian. Unfortunately, not in English. There are many available there, so please take your own copy. And if you want to scan the QR codes, sorry, please do it now. So they're here to be widely used. Thank you. I'm already finished.
Thank you very much, Jacques. We'll take questions at the end of this session. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Rick Wortelboer. I hope I'm getting this correct now. Rick Wortelboer. Probably didn't, so sorry, Rick, from the Netherlands. Rick is a prominent Dutch ecologist, and his Nestbox cameras provided interesting insights into swift breeding behavior, which he presented at the Swift conference in Italy. He has developed a standardized urban census methodology using dusk cycling routes to accurately map local colonies. He has also studied swift towers in the Netherlands and their role in mitigation measures, and his current research looks at the effects of temperatures on breeding swifts.
Thank you. So let's talk about temperature. This is the first of two talks that I'm giving today. The second one is rescheduled from tomorrow to this afternoon. So at the end of the day, we probably have a lot more about, know a lot more about temperature. I've done this research when I was working for Arcadis, an engineering company worldwide, with alias Jacques. Why this review? Well, revisited or review, it depends on how you look at it. High temperature on the roofs are known for quite some while, so it's not new. However, I found out that especially at Arcadis and probably other engineering companies as well, Swift tiles were still used as a mitigation measure when houses were renovated. And me working for Arcadis 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, started to question, why are we doing that? Why are you doing that? Do you know about high temperatures? And do you know that this measure is probably will not be so successful? Well, me being a pain sometime, there were no answers to my questions if there were successful breeding. And a typical Dutch reaction came up, and it was, let us do some more research. So we're quite good in the Netherlands to postpone decisions by, well, let's do some more research. Okay, and that we did. The context is a species management plan in the north of the country. They have a general license for, to renovate buildings and rebuild buildings, but that may contain swift nests. But the idea is that all houses will be delivered nature inclusive, which means that there's one or more swift nests facilities at the end present, one or more house sparrow nests, and one or more bed roosting or colony facilities. Although nests disappear, new facilities will be built in higher numbers. But they have to be suitable, of course. There was research was designed to measure temperatures. It's in the north of our country, in the earthquake area, where a lot of reinforcement of houses is going on because of the damage done by the earthquakes. This was because of the gas extraction deep down underground, and the whole of the ground is still settling and giving earthquakes at times. In different locations, most of them small cities, there were 23 loggers in the first year, 28 in the second year, on a total of 29 addresses. And there were 1 to 5 loggers per address, sometimes at different size of the house, and different exposure. Sometimes there were just 2 of them together to see what the differences were. And sometimes there were different heights on the roof to see if there's a difference in in the vertical way. So these are the temperature readings from one logger, which had the highest readings. These were on one day, 25th of June 2023, and you see the eastern logger on the eastern side of the roof getting as high as 60 degrees. On the west side, west-southwest, it's a bit less, but still 45 degrees. On the coldest day, it reaches 30 degrees at most. And, well, you can see from the outside temperature, the blue one, that there's about 20 to 30 degrees temperature rise under the roof compared to the outside shade temperature. Well, unfortunately, on the south side, there were no measurements done. One thing is high maximum temperature, but the other thing is for what period of time this temperature lasts inside this nest. So here we have in the different months the number of days that a temperature lasts. So this is higher than 42 degrees being the body temperature of swifts. So on 23 days, the temperature under the roofs was more than 42 degrees. And it lasted for, on average, 4.9 hours. So almost 5 hours. That's quite a time. And even on Sundays, it got even higher to 50, 55, just what you saw from the graph before. And you see 55 degrees for 2.5 hours. Well, that's far above their body temperature. So it's not known what the exact temperature is that adult swifts or young swifts can cope with. But body temperature is a physiological thing. They are able to lose heat by, how you call it, by breathing very rapidly with the beak open. The question is if they can lose so much heat by that way when temperatures are so high. Okay, so the duration is one thing, and the temperature is another, and there's a relation with the exposure. So on which wind direction the roof is facing. East, west, and southwest is the highest and the longest periods. West and north-northwest and north the lowest temperatures and lowest period. Okay, but exposition, like you see in this graph, doesn't explain all the differences. So we looked further, and we started modeling daily maximum temperatures. The target was what was measured by these temperature loggers, and we had a number of explaining variables being total solar irradiation, of course, sunshine, daily maximum outdoor temperature, roof exposition, roof slope, and a number of things related to the tiles themselves. However, these are the tile characteristics which were all very correlated with each other, and that was because, well, they had the tile glazing, which was only done on red colored tiles. So there were correlations between these, and therefore we stick to the daily solar irradiation, daily maximum outer temperature, and a factor that was combining the roof exposition and the roof slope. The idea behind the last thing is that if you have irradiance perpendicular to the roof, the solar irradiance is the most intense. And if there's an angle, then the light and the heat is spread over a bigger surface area. So from that, we derived a sun factor, we call it here, but you could call it an exposure slope index. that let's see. Let's take the south. It's over here, and the slope is over here. So if I go from 90 degrees, that's vertical, to 30 degrees, I see a number of 1. That means that the sun on the 21st of June in this particular region is perpendicular on the roof. So the light intensity is most intense. And if you go further away from south, it becomes, the angle will be larger, and the light intensity will be less. So with this concept, we started the modeling. I skipped the comparison with the measurements, but there was 68% of the total variance was explained by all these 3 variables. And what we see here, this is the line of 42 degrees of body temperature. That's on the south slope, which we could now model. You have very high temperatures in summer, and this is a period from 2025 where there was a heat spell in the Netherlands. Temperatures rose to 38 degrees in the south of the country, and this is still the north. But you can imagine that a lot of sunshine and then outer temperature, that temperatures under the tiles rise very high. And here is on the north that you can see that at a certain slope of the roof, it also reaches almost 40 degrees. So from that, you can say, well, there is some value of this exposure slope index that will generate this temperature. And so from different things, we took this sun factor, which is a characteristic of the roof of the house itself. The measured irradiance, the irradiance intensity we calculated from these two, and then we calculated the temperature. I think this is the other way around in the pictures, but this is how we got to this. Okay. And what you can also do is use this concept to simulate the temperatures during the day, and you see from I use data from Henk Schröder in another part of the country. It's the same day that he did his measurements to simulate the temperature under the eastern roof and the temperature under the western roof. It's a general simple model here. It's the heating by the sun and the outer and the cooling to outside air temperature, or rising to outside air temperature if the temperature outside is higher. What it does not include is obstruction by nearby houses or nearby trees, which you can see over here. And it doesn't also include a peak we see here on the western side of the roof, which we cannot explain by sunlight and outside temperature. So this might be warming of the construction of the house, of the attic, which is giving warmth to the space under the tiles. Okay, and we can calculate, of course, what would have been if there was a southern roof there, southern exposed. Okay, what did Arcadis and this species management plan do with the advice? Well, they said we use internal boxes, but now and again we need the Swift tiles because there's not enough room on the house to place these mitigation measures. Well, we preferably do it on the north-facing roofs. But it would probably be better if they have looked at this index and say, well, we want to stay below 0.28 which was giving this 40 degrees temperature line. They didn't, but anyway, this would have been the savory zones in which they could have been operating. What you also see is that if you go to a 90-degree slope, that means vertical, then you'll have also a danger zone over here. So that's something that you can keep in mind, given that probably tiles and the wall are a bit different reacting to temperature, but still that's something that you can investigate. So what can we learn from this? Maximum temperature under the roofs generally 20 to 30 degrees warmer on sunny and warm days than measured outside. And in Northwestern Europe, frequently 30 degrees in summer. What was it yesterday over here? 27? Well, add a 30 degrees and you come up on 50, 60 degrees, which of course is far too hot for Swifts and for the eggs as well. Well, we've not taken into account ventilation of construction, but an important thing to realize is that we are used to Swifts breeding under roofs, but the roofs of 50 years ago are very different from the roofs we have today. Today, the roofs have less ventilation. On top and on the sides, the tiles have often been filled in with insulation material, and the ventilation is much less than it used to be. So if we're seeing Swifts breed or going under a tiled roof, we really need to ask whether this will give successful clutches. And also in Southern Europe, most likely roofs are working in the same way. So then we can imagine that given a 40 degrees outside temperature, you will reach 60 to 70 degrees under the roofs. And a lot of young Swifts will end up in rehabilitation because they just jump out. Or they try to crawl to a place that's cooler and they find it very close to the outside opening or even beyond. And then they're on the ground and they're so this is really a thing we should look into. What is temperature doing and what is the relation with rehabilitation and what can we do about it? Because let's be fair, we don't want any Swifts in rehab. We want them in the nests in a natural way. So, some 10 years ago, we did this camera research in the Netherlands with, this was the picture, but there's a touch to it, right? It switched. And what going as a response to Chris's talk yesterday, so we had a number of clutches, all followed by cameras. We had I distinguished between artificial and natural nesting sites. And we see a higher number of eggs, which was significant, a higher number of young, which was significant as well, and a higher number of young fledged. And it's even beyond the critical value, the magical value of 1.8 that Chris mentioned yesterday. But what we also see is that egg survival, it's not different for both types of nesting places. But if you look at the young survival, you see that they can't cope so well in natural nesting places when temperatures are low, and also not when temperatures are high. So this is a difference between survival of the young, and we say, because of that, we say, artificial nesting places do deliver more young, and at all times. So artificial nesting places are giving higher, more young and a more probably stable population than the old ones. So let's be ready to make our climate-proof nesting sites and climate-proof population of swifts. Oh, what's going on? I don't know. All right, we come upon this bunch of people yesterday near the swimming pool, and they were very suspicious behaving, suspiciously. Well, they tried to hide it, of course, behind the chips and the beer, but well, they looked a bit. We had our thoughts. The organizing committee told us to warn you that these people might be around on the campus, so beware and don't approach them. Go to your nearest local organization committee member, and yes. Thank you. Oh, I must mention that they were looking very suspiciously at a blank wall at the swimming pool with some little holes on top of them, and when something black flew through the air, almost too swift for a bird, they all shouted from, yeah, 1, no, 6, no, 23, 1 in 10, or was it 10 in 1? I don't know. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. Now to our last speaker, Eugenia Parisi from the Swifts of Campiglia in Italy. And so Eugenia is a prominent Italian artist and conservationist based in Tuscany, widely recognized for her dedicated efforts to protect swifts. And she expresses her passion for swifts through handmade ceramics. And under her art label, Ornithological, she designs beautiful ceramic bird structures, wall art, ornithostones inspired by swifts, swallows and martins, and she frequently uses her artwork to raise funds for bird conservation. So you're very welcome, Eugenia.
Thank you. Thank you. Is this on? Am I on? So I want to thank, first of all, the organizer of the Swift conference for the great work and for having me here. Thank you very much. So my presentation today is about this project that we started in Campiglia Marittima, which is a small town in Tuscany. It's about 100 kilometers south of Pisa. It's not far from the seashore. And as you see, it's an old town. The architecture is, mostly still medieval architecture. And from the end of March to mid-July, the sky is really teeming with swifts. You will have a good idea of what is Campiglia during swift season if you stay also tomorrow for the video that will be the last video will have Born to Fly, right? That is about several Italian conservation projects. And our swifts, in Campiglia there is a big colony of swifts, and they nest in walls and under the roof tiles. But these sites are not safe because year after year with building renovations, many swift nests are blocked or destroyed when re-roofing. And as I became aware of this, in 2017, together with my husband, Roberto, who is here, we started this Swift conservation project that we named Swifts of Campiglia, Rondoni Campigliesi, Swifts of Campiglia. And our first initiative was to offer a Swift talk to the local people and to tourists in town, because although the Swifts are many in Campiglia, and the colony has been there since ever, not many people really knew about Swifts, included us. You know, also just the difference between what is a swallow and what is a swift. They're not the same species. That was not really clear. So we started with offering this talk, and we invited an ornithologist, Giuseppe Bogliani, from the University of Pavia, and we put this evening already under the name of Swift Festival, because in Italy we had already been in touch with other Swift, Swift experts, and that had started a series of initiatives under this name, Festival dei Rondoni, like Mauro Ferri, that you probably all know, started these initiatives. So this evening was very successful, and actually two little things happened that gave us the idea that it was a sort of a blessing, because we had a little chick who fell in the middle of a square, and people could really see the swift from nearby and see what is a swift. And then we had also the luck of having among our audience Dagmar Lawrence, who is the daughter of the famous Konrad Lorenz, and she owns a place in Campiglia, so she was there for the evening. So we took this as a blessing, and people were very happy, and so year after year, it became a tradition that in June there is one evening when we invite a different speaker to talk about different problems that concern Swifts. Among our speakers have been Mauro Ferri, Franco Sacchetti, Lothar Schifflers, and that you know also Giovanni Boano, probably, Marcel Jacques, who is here, Giulia Masoero, and Marco Cucco. And but my presentation today wants to focus actually on how creative ideas can help a conservation project. And you might already know that even a biscuit cutter can help. We had this biscuit made for our first edition already in 2017. In order to remind people about our swifts, even when the swifts are not present, because the swifts are in Campiglia, as I said, from end of March to middle of July, and then they're gone. And many tourists come in August or in a different season. They would not even know that the swifts exist in Campiglia, because there are no swift nest boxes. The swifts are mainly, in walls and under the roof, so you would not know. So I had the idea of making these swift tiles made in ceramic, because I'm a ceramist. And at first I gave them as presents to cafe and to the local activities, and they liked them, they put them out. And then also, like, private people started to ask me for swifts. And so now if you go in Campiglia, even in December, Campiglia is filled up with swifts on the walls. And in fact, the pottery has really become an opportunity to talk to people about Swift, because they might be attracted by, a cup or a little pot, but the price that they have to pay for buying a piece of pottery from me is that they have to listen to a Swift talk. And in fact, it's through pottery that we met with many people, people who then installed Swift Nest, people who became actually our associates. One of my most helpful associates, she entered my the place where I keep my pottery, because she's a potter herself. So, but now she's really became very helpful with the conservation project. We met with people who run different conservation projects in other locations, in Italy and all over, and with people also who asked, for example, to give Swift talk to groups. And also the pottery production with Swift also prompted other people in Campiglia, other artists, to introduce Swifts in their own art productions. And here there is Susan Oak, who is a British lady but lives in Campiglia, and she paints, and another friend, Alberto Castelnuovo, who works with wood. Someone still gets confused about swallow and swifts. This is actually a painter from Campiglia, and he wanted to introduce the swifts, but these are swallows. Again, it's with making good use of this ceramic. We organized a Swift walk. So there is a map, and you can follow and through the village, and where you find the Swift tile, then you can read information about Swifts. It's 21 tiles, spread along the village aisles. And this, I think that tourists really enjoy this. Another way of attracting attention on Swifts has been organizing photographic exhibitions. We had one in 2019, another one in 2022, and actually also last year we had a bit of an exhibition outdoors. And thanks to many friends who gave us their pictures, so we could have these exhibitions. And here you can see a photo by Lothar Schiffler, and who has been also participating to the Swift conference. I remember him from Tel Aviv, where I met him. And John Perry is another British photographer. Also, our interaction with school started actually from a creative project, because from a story that was written and illustrated for the children of Campiglia. And with this, we go, to the nursery school every year, and we have a few sessions with them. And these are the adventures of a little chick who lives under a roof tile in Campiglia. And actually the story goes through the whole life cycle of Swift. And eventually, in 2023, I took the challenge of writing a book for grown-ups. And I wanted to share really basic information about Swifts, but also I wanted to convey really the magic of a Swift life. and through beautiful images and the special concertina format. I wanted something that could attract people to buy this as an object, as something that they wanted because it was nice, not to attract only people who would be already interested in Swifts. And this was really a nice adventure, the creation of this book that I shared with Cristina Iacamar, who did all the drawings, and Giovanni Fasio is my publisher, and that he specialized in this special shape of the Leporello book. This little book title is Figli dell'Aria, Children of Air. And thanks to the friend Elizabeth Cotton, who is also a Swift expert, and she lives in Genoa, but she's from Wales. And she made for us a translation of the text of the book. And so now the book is available also with the English text. In this little book, there is something that I really love, that I'm really honored that I could put in, and it is a poem, The Black Swift, written by the Portuguese poet Luís Quintesh. And in the following slide, which is a little video, you will see some of the images of the book, and you will hear Elizabeth reading the poem in her English translation. And the poem was, when I discovered this poem, it had not been translated into another language, but I contacted the poet who lives in Lisbon, and he let us translate it in Italian first and then in English. And as you will hear the poem, the poet has been inspired by the Swifts of Lisbon. But the poem is really, if you put the name Campiglia instead and Lisbon there, it's just perfect as well. So.
But are the Black Swifts in Lisbon? And what does that matter? Sometimes I imagine the Black Swift dashing through the streets of Lisbon, leaving the end of summer behind, returning to the southern zones, lighting a glimmer of warmth on the plains, clearing the way towards another time as another rhythm grows in the distance, and faraway Africas softly arrive under the shelter of flight. Sometimes I imagine a bird carved in the landscape, left suspended above time, a time which did not pass, so that the light would gently sustain it in the heavens, and the Mediterranean blue along the seashore would gravitate into the night without darkening. And the earth would not be a deathbed, but a melodious dwelling. The Black Swift, Luís Quintesh.
And with this, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you very much, Eugenia. I think it's a particularly wonderful feature of this conference is the music and poetry and art that is included, and it really is beautiful. Thank you.